What if I told you there's a tiny, 30-mile strip of water on our planet so powerful that controlling it basically means holding the entire world hostage? And if it were ever blocked, it could trigger global devastation. Well, this is the story of the world's most dangerous and important choke point.
It sounds like a pretty wild question, doesn't it? I mean, how could such a small area have so much power? But the scary part is, the answer is a definite yes. This narrow passage has the power to unleash a worldwide economic crisis, or maybe even something much, much worse.
Okay, so this potential flashpoint for global conflict is called the Strait of Hormuz. And to really get why it's so powerful, we first need to understand the incredibly fragile network our entire global economy depends on every single day.
So what exactly is it? Well, a strait is just a narrow waterway that connects two bigger bodies of water, and the Strait of Hormuz is the only way to get from the Persian Gulf out to the open ocean by sea. Think of it like a massive building with only one single door in or out, a very, very important door.
Now, that single-door idea is absolutely crucial. In the world of shipping, these spots are called choke points. They're these narrow channels along super busy sea routes that are essential for world trade.
And here's why this is such a big deal. A whopping, get this, 80% of all global trade travels by sea. Right now, as you're watching this, there are about 50,000 massive cargo ships out on the oceans, carrying literally everything from your smartphone to the fuel in your car. Our entire modern way of life is floating on those waves.
But here's the catch. Getting across these oceans isn't always a straight shot. Because of geography, you have these choke points, and if just one of them gets blocked for any reason, the whole global economy can grind to a halt. In fact, we saw a perfect example of this just a little while ago.
Yeah, I'm sure you remember this. Back in March of 2021, one single ship, the Ever Given, managed to get wedged sideways in the Suez Canal. For 6 days, it created the world's biggest traffic jam, with hundreds of ships stuck, and that sent a massive shockwave through supply chains all over the planet.
And the price tag for that little 6-day blockage? A mind-blowing $10 billion in lost trade. And that was just one ship, stuck for less than a week. It perfectly shows just how vulnerable our whole global system is to these choke points.
And look, there are plenty of others. The Panama Canal, the Strait of Malacca, the Turkish Straits. Every one of them is like a critical artery for the global economy. But none of them are as dangerous or as strategically important as the Strait of Hormuz.
So what is it about Hormuz? What makes it the big one? Well, the secret isn't in the strait itself, but in what it's guarding, the Persian Gulf.
You know, when you think of the Middle East, you probably think of oil. And you'd be right. The countries that circle the Persian Gulf are sitting on top of the largest concentration of energy reserves on the entire planet. And the Strait of Hormuz, it's the only way to ship that energy out to the rest of us.
This scale here is just... it's hard to even wrap your head around. The nations right there on the Gulf control half, that's 50%, of the world's proven oil reserves, and 40% of its natural gas. This region is, no exaggeration, the energy heart of our world. You've got 8 countries that share this coastline: Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE, and Oman. For every single one of them, the Strait of Hormuz is their main connection, and for some, their only connection to the rest of the world's markets.
Okay, so we know where all this energy is coming from. But the other half of the story is, where is it all going? Because some of the world's biggest economies are totally dependent on the smooth flow of traffic through this one little 30-mile passage.
Let's start with China. It's the world's second largest economy and the biggest oil importer on the planet. Almost half of all the petroleum it imports, 45% of it, has to sail right through the Strait of Hormuz.
Then you have Japan, the world's third largest economy. Now for them, this is on a whole other level. Japan has to import basically all of its energy. And an unbelievable 80% of that imported energy comes through this one single choke point. Talk about vulnerable. And this story of dependency, it just keeps going. Look at India, the world's 6th largest economy. It pulls in a massive 70% of its oil and 50% of its natural gas from the Persian Gulf. All of it has to pass through the Strait of Hormuz.
And it's the same story for South Korea, the world's 10th largest economy. 70% of its oil comes through that very same route. The pattern here is crystal clear. The industrial powerhouses of modern Asia are all fueled by the Persian Gulf.
So let's just put this all together and let it sink in.
If the Strait of Hormuz were ever closed for a long period of time, the economies of China, Japan, India, and South Korea could literally face collapse. An event like that would instantly spark a global economic crisis on a scale we can barely imagine.
Now, whenever you have this much economic power concentrated in one tiny spot, you know what comes next, right? Tension. Big time. Because the stakes are so high, this small stretch of water has become one of the most heavily militarized and contested places on Earth.
You see, the geography of the strait itself is, well, it's tricky. It's full of islands, which makes it tough for these gigantic oil tankers to navigate. And who controls those islands and the shipping lanes themselves is a constant source of friction, mainly between two major powers. So on one side of this standoff, you have the United States and its allies. Their number one goal is simple: keep the strait open, keep the oil flowing. And to do that, they have dozens of military bases in allied Gulf countries. But on the other side, you have Iran. Iran physically controls a lot of the strait's coastline and 7 of the 8 key islands right inside it. And Iran is threatened over and over again to block the strait, to use it as a weapon if there's ever a war.
And that leaves us right here, with this one chilling question. With the entire global economy on the line, and with powerful military forces staring each other down in this tiny corridor, what happens if Iran actually follows through on that threat? What happens the day the oil stops flowing? The economic damage would be instant, but the geopolitical fallout, that could send us down a path to a much bigger, much more devastating conflict.